we have covered 10 impurities of insight, Vipassana kilesas. As for the first 9 impurities, beginning with obhasa, elimination and so on, sometimes they occur almost at the same time, or they occur one by one. But when one cognizes, it is just one by one. Because when one object is arising, obhasa is arising, it will be just obhasa and no other. As we say, one mind, one object. At one time, the mind cognizes one object only. And this has to be understood. Today we shall discuss among the 10 Vipassana kilesas, impurities of insight. Some are just causes for impurity, causes of impurities, not themselves are akusalas, and others akusala as well as impurity. If one has not realized an object, then one would not think that this is unusual. Now, this in the practice of Vipassana, as one cultivates mindfulness and concentration, as they become powerful, one begins to cultivate insight knowledge, beginning with the discernment of mind and body. And in this way, Vipassana insight knowledge arises, comprehending the cause and effect process, leading to the comprehension of the universal existence of phenomenal, universal characteristics of phenomenal existence. At this stage, one will not experience things like illuminations, which are the impurities of insight as yet. Only when one reaches the stage of the tender stage of Uddiyadya Jnana, when one sees the fading away of these objects, seeing the beginning and the end of each object, then one will experience these impurities of insight, such as illuminations, knowledge, piti, passaddhi, which one has not experienced before, and thinking that they are real insight. So thinking that this leads to, this is the side of insight, and because one gains insight, one experiences these illuminations and so on. So, and this mistaken perception, thinking that this is insight, mistaking these impurities as insight, is a distorted path, not a straight path. Only when one walks the right path, one will reach the right destination. If one walks the wrong path, one will not reach the right destination. So, thinking that mistaking this as real insight, one will not strive to cultivate higher jnanas, higher insight knowledge, higher stages of insight knowledge, to reach the liberating insight. So, instead, one will become attached to whatever arises, such as illuminations, jnana, piti, passaddhi, and so on, and also reflecting upon one's experiences over and over again with delight. So, becoming attached to these impurities of insight, such as illuminations and so on, are known as tanha. As is said in this Uttisa Vipanga Sutta, if one is practicing well, seemingly well, and become attached to one's experience, one is said to be stagnating within. If one is become attached, one stagnates within, and wishing to experience this phenomena again and again, and wishing to keep it without relinquishing it. Not only tanha, attachment, but also pride. One will become proud that this is I have, only I can realize this, and the one who realizes is I. In this way, there will be this clinging by way of mana. And then this is tanha in this way, attachment is tanha, and this pride is mana, and also egoism, the sense of I, this is I am experiencing it, or the one who is experiencing is I. In this way, one clings to the view of self or soul. This is atta, and this is deity, view, wrong view. And then viewing and thinking that part of yourself itself is illumination. This is holding on to wrong view, deity. In the text is given these three states, mental states, unwholesome mental states, tanha, mana, deity, are described with one word, namely gaha, holding, grasping, not wishing to relinquish, or not relinquishing. That is clinging or grasping. So each one of these upakilesas, impurities of insight, is held on. In this way, one has, has gaha. So with attachment, this is tantamount to tanha gaha, holding on with attachment. And with pride, we have mana gaha, holding on with pride. And then thinking that there is I, you, person, being, individual, self, soul. This is deity gaha, holding on as view or wrong view. In this way, there are three graspings for each of these impurities of insight. So when we calculate in this way, this 10 upakilesa virtu, 10 kinds of impurities of insight, with these three graspings, we get 30 gaha or graspings. So each of these impurities of insight, upakilesa virtu, has these three kinds of grasping in terms of tanha, mana, deity. So if you just take it as gaha, then the 10 upakilesas, impurities of insight, are understood at once as gaha, clinging or grasping. Those who are skilled in Pali can understand it at once. So at times one grasps or clings with tanha, attachment, as tanha gaha. Sometimes one holds on with pride. This is mana gaha. At other times one holds on to egoism, I, you, and so on. This is tantamount to deity gaha. In this way, it is easily understood when one is skilled in Pali language. For those who are not skilled in Pali language, this gaha, one word, has to be described as gaha of three kinds. So this upakilesa virtu, impurities of insight, each with three kinds of gaha, will give 30 gahas as is given in the text. This is all for your general knowledge. So as not to hold on with gaha, one notes as soon as illuminations arise. One notes as soon as one experiences sharp knowledge, jnana. One notes as soon as piti, rapturous feeling, arises. One notes as soon as one feels calm and tranquil, passaddhi arises. And all these attendant sensations like lightness, proficiency, wieldiness, and so on. All these things, Dhamma delights, Dhamma experiences, are to be noted. When Saddha arises, as soon as it arises, one should note. When energy, with easily following the objects, if energy arises in this way, one also should note. And if vivriya, that is energy, and then also if sukha arises, one should note at once. In this way, one will understand, as one activates mindfulness, one will understand the characteristics of these phenomenal existence, such as these objects which are noted are not permanent, they arise and pass away, and they are not satisfactory, and then they rise at their will, not at your will. They are not self or soul, they are substanceless. Of course, if you are not mindful, you will not be aware of these three things. As we said, unknowing leads to attachment or clinging to one or all of these three gahas. If one is mindful and fully aware, then one will not hold on to any of these gahas. Hence it is said that if one is attached, one must note it off so as not to stagnate within. When one experiences Dhamma experience, one tends to become attached. So one is to know and overcome it. Not overcome it, note and abandon it or overcome it. They will not be overcome automatically. You cannot pull them out. You have to note and overcome. Then these tanha, mana, ditthi will weaken and slowly fade away, so that you will not be holding on to any of these gahas. And the yogi's duty is to note whatever arises, good or bad, until one reaches the cherished goal. Out of these 10 impurities of insight, upakilesas, the former impurities, which are 9 in number, or in terms of tanha, mana, ditthi, they are the causes for attachment. They are causes for attachment, hence they are known as impurities. They are cause for impurities, therefore they are called impurities. They are not actually akusalas, unskillful states of mind. So one has to differentiate like this. As for nikanti, the 10th one, itself is an impurity, which is real akusala in a very subtle form. It is cause for, as well as cause for attachment. It is itself is impurity as well as cause for impurity, which is attachment. So therefore it is called upakilesas, as well as impurity as well as cause for impurity. It has two names, upakilesa as such, and cause for upakilesa vatu, cause for impurity. So in this way, we have two names for this nikanti, the last one. So depending on these commentaries on path of purity, Visuddhimagga, we can take in this sense that the first 9 ones, 9 impurities of insight, from abhasa to upekkha, illuminations to equanimity, if one is not subject to tanha, mana, ditthi, only when one is subject to tanha, mana, ditthi, that means one becomes attached and one is proud, or one has a distorted view as self or soul, they are known as upakilesas, impurities of insight. If you are not, a yogi is not subject to these 3 things, tanha, mana, ditthi, then they don't become impurities of insight. Therefore, the responsibility of the yogi is to note as soon as these impurities arise, such as illuminations and so on, so that they don't become to be called as upakilesa vatu, a real impurity of insight. If you note at once, then there will be no attachment, tanha. One will not cling in terms of attachment, tanha. One will not cling or grasp in terms of pride, mana, nor one will cling in terms of deity view or wrong view. In this way, one will be free from these three things, tanha, mana, deity. And then such phenomena will not be called impurities of insight. If one continues to practice and progress from the tender stage of Udayana to the mature stage of Udayana, then there will be only fast arising and passing, and there will be no experience of the beginning of the object. Only the end will be observed. That is Paṇḍitā, dissolution, knowledge of dissolution. From Paṇḍitā Jnana up to Saṅkharupeka Jnana, knowledge of the equanimity towards all formations. The mindfulness becomes very strong, very well activated. As much as the mindfulness is activated, this Dhamma Vijaya Jnana, known as Dhamma Vijaya, investigation of states, also will become very strong and powerful and obvious. Viriya energy also will be balanced. At that stage, this upekha, calmness, equanimous feeling, equanimous bliss or happiness with equanimity, in keeping with the enlightened, the Bojjhanga Dhammas, the enlightenment will arise. Factors of enlightenment, Bojjhanga. The upekha, in keeping with the factors of enlightenment, Bojjhanga will arise. And so at that stage, things like sada and all that will not become impurities of insight. One will become free of impurities of insight. As one has gained insight, the one who has already gained insight will always start from arising and passing away, knowledge of arising and passing away, when one begins the practice. After having seen in the beginning the discernment of mind and body, the cause and effect, up till samasara jnana, knowledge, reflective knowledge, comprehending the characteristics, these things will not arise for those who have already gained insight. Instead, they will start from the arising and passing away, free from impurities of insight. Although they arise, they will not be called impurities of insight, because one does not cling or hold on to these experiences. That's why they cannot be called impurities of insight, although they arise. So this should be understood. Those yogis who practice by taking instructions and guidance, continuous guidance from spiritual guides, teachers, Kalyana Metta, or those who have understood some knowledge of Abhidhamma, and for them, whenever they experience such impurities of insight, such as illuminations, jnana, piti, passaddhi, and so on, they will understand at once that, because the teachers have already told them, or the books have already said, that, this is the dangers of impurities of insight. They are coming now. So in this way, knowing them, they will not become real, because they will come to understand that they are not insight, nor are they the result of insight. And in this way, one will be able to overcome these impurities of insight, or overcome misunderstanding. Then also reflecting upon this, becoming attached to this, is not Vipassana method. So one will come to understand. I mean, those yogis who have approached the Kalyana Metta and who have some understanding on a theoretical basis will not reflect upon this Dhamma or attachment and understand that this is not the Vipassana way. So these impurities of insight, such as illuminations, have not arisen before. Now they are arising anew. So that means they are not permanent. They have come, they go away, they appear and disappear, and then they are not satisfactory. They are not worthy to be accepted, unacceptable, and they are not self or soul. And in this way, one must comprehend these objects as they arise in terms of these three characteristics of phenomenal existence. So only one will also understand that only by noting them as soon as they arise will one's practice be the cause for progress towards higher insight knowledge. And only that is the right insight path, Vipassana path. Therefore, whatever arises, one will become mindful and fully aware of these objects as they arise. Then one's practice will become correct and be on the right path. Whatever happens should be definite commitment that one would have it this way, not that way. At that time, when these impurities of insight arise, one must be mindful and fully aware without reflecting, without thinking, without conceptualization, so that one should have this kind of commitment, as one should be noting and be aware of the nature of these objects noted. And this is called nimitta, commitment that one will let this happen, not happen the other way. From the beginning of the practice, one must have this committed. One must be committed to this kind of practice. That is, from the beginning, one must not indulge in thoughts and reflection. Whatever arises, one will not give in to thoughts. And one will only connect with whatever arises immediately, activating mindfulness respectfully and carefully, to be mindful and fully aware. Then such yogis are bound to progress very soon. So as all been said before, one should not give priority to thoughts or reflections or conceptualization. And when one is trying to gain direct experience of the Paramattha Dhammas, the realities, and if one indulges in thoughts, then one will be superficial, then one's knowledge will be superficial, energetically and precisely. Then only one will be able to cultivate this knowledge with one's own experience. And then such people, if one gives priority to noting whatever arises without thoughts, then one is bound to progress very soon. And then when one reaches the stage of Uriyavya Jnana, one will not give in to delight as regards these impurities of insight, nor one will reflect upon all these things by being not be drifted away in this way. Instead, whatever arises, one knows that one's responsibility is just to note. And then one is bound to gain insight knowledge in terms of the knowledge of the fleeting momentary nature of experience. This is your empirical knowledge. Those who give priority to pure knowledge, pure awareness of the arising and passing way in a unique manner, are bound to experience this anicca lakkhana, the characteristic of impermanence, as one sees things coming and going. And because these arising and passing way objects are tormenting, persecuting, ill-treating, not being satisfactory, one comes to cultivate this dukkha lakkhana, characteristic of unsatisfactoriness. And whatever is impermanent and unsatisfactory cannot be manageable, they cannot be controlled, they arise as their will, not as your will. In this way, one comes to comprehend the anatta lakkhana, the characteristic of impersonality. In this way, these three characteristics will come to one's mind in a very pure and obvious form. At the time whenever one notes and activates mindfulness, seeing the impermanent nature of these objects noted in a very clear-cut manner, will be free from these impurities of insight. In this way, one is said to be gaining this insight knowledge of Uriyabhya Jnana in a very pure and clear-cut manner. At this stage, the one practices, and in the course of the practice, these impurities of insight may arise, but at this stage, at the stage of this Uriyabhya Jnana, these impurities of insight will not arise, or the one will not become attached to these impurities of insight. So, not to mention attachment about the sense objects, ordinary worldly pleasures, of objects of worldly pleasures, impinging the six sense doors. One will not become attached at all. Even if one encounters desirable or agreeable objects, there will not be any desire or attachment or craving or lust. There will be only noting mind arising continuously, noting consciousness arising continuously, seeing the arising and passing way of these objects noted. And in this way, one is free from this one extreme of sense indulgence, kama sukhalika nuyoga, one extreme of sense indulgence or just indulgence. That is devoting oneself to sense pleasures of senses. This is one extreme. In this way, if one's noting mind is continuous, seeing the arising and passing away, one will overcome this one extreme, or one will be free from this extreme of indulgence. And then in the course of the practice, one is not denying, one is not practicing self-denial, one is taking whatever is necessary, whatever is essential as regards food and requisites, and also one balances oneself with these four postures, and then one adjusts oneself to weather conditions, not to be too hot or cold. And in this way, one will be free from this self-persecution, self-modification, one extreme of self-modification. So, in this way, one is free from sense indulgence because one is using whatever is necessary. One partakes of these four requisites as and when necessary in a moderate way. And at the same time, not denying, not practicing the self-denial. If one leaves the mind uncontrolled about these objects, sense objects, then one will be indulging in these sense objects, kama sukhalika nuyoga. If one is practicing the self-denial, tormenting oneself so as to suffer extreme asceticism, then it amounts to atta kilamata, yoga, one extreme of self-mortification. So that one will be free from the weak form of this self-indulgence and also the extreme form of self-mortification. In this way, one strikes the middle path, center point. This is known as Majjhima. So, as one progresses from the tender stage of Uddiyavya Jnana, becoming free of these, becoming free from attachment to these impurities of insight, and coming to the stage of the mature form of Uddiyavya Jnana. These impurities inside, even if they arise, will fade away and come to comprehend the arising and passing away in a very fast manner and a very pure manner. In this way, one will not consider these impurities of insight as mega path, nor thinking or reflecting upon them as path. And the only right path is to be mindful and fully aware continuously. And in this way, one is able to distinguish between the right and wrong path, and the path becomes very straightforward, very direct. This is the knowledge of mega jnana dasana visuddhi, beauty of seeing this is path or not path. At this stage, one continues to practice. One will advance forward, not retreat back, seeing the arising and passing away, noting these objects and seeing them as arising and passing away. And this way knowledge will arise. At that time, all these impurities of insight will slowly fade away until one becomes totally free from these impurities of insight and be able to have a pure and noting consciousness. If one continues in this way, center point, middle path, until one reaches the peace of Nibbana. This is the right path, hence it is known as Majjhima Patipada, the practice of the middle way, free from the two extremes. Because one sees the arising and passing away, one is walking the right path and one advances from the tender Uddiyavya Jnana to the mature, ripened stage of Uddiyavya Jnana. So what is the difference between these tender and ripened or mature forms of Uddiyavya Jnana? At the tender stage, one sees only the beginning and the end of the objects very clearly. For instance, if you are noting rising, you observe the beginning and the end, not quite the middle. What happened in the middle, in between. And when you're not falling, you observe the beginning and the end very clearly. Same thing goes with other objects, sensations such as heat, cold, and so on. Batch by batch, you see clearly the beginning and the end. This is seeing sanati pajuppana, continuity of the objects of the same nature from the beginning to the end. Now, at the mature or ripened stage of Uddiyavya Jnana, one notes also the same objects, rising and falling, seeing the sensations such as stiffness, tension, movement, which are of the same nature in each. One sees the middle of these two, of the rising and fall, of the rising, beginning and the end. Not only the beginning and the end, but also the middle, in segments, in between, increments of objects, in between the beginning and the end of this rising and falling. Segment of this stiffness, tension and movement, and the same thing goes with other objects like sensations or even the sound. When one hears, one hears the sound in increments or segments, the old giving place to the new. This is momentary Pachupanna, Kanna Pachupanna, momentary, momentary nature, more clearer than before. So, seeing the object from the beginning to the end, this first one, the tender form, and in the mature stage, one sees the segments, increments, very more clearly. This is the difference between the tender stage and the matured stage of Uddiyāvaya Jnana. From this stage of insight to this, for instance, Bhanga Jnana, dissolution, knowledge of dissolution, the seeing or the dissolving of the objects, not even the arising. This is Bhanga Jnana. And then one moves on to Bhaya, knowledge of fear, up to Anuloma Jnana. Then these are 9 kinds of insight stages. Knowledge of conformity to path, that's Anuloma Jnana. Up to that stage, we have 9 stages of insight knowledge. And these 9 stages of insight knowledge are collectively known as Patipada Jnana Dasana Visuddhi. Beauty by seeing that this is a path to Ariyahood, or noble stage, the stage of noble Ariya, noblehood. So this is beauty of seeing that this is a path leading to become an Ariya. Of course, for this there's no time to deal with the subject, and also it is not appropriate at this stage to explain this beauty of insight, Visuddhi, Jnana-Dasana Visuddhi, knowledge and vision, beauty by knowledge and vision of this path leading to Ariya. Of course, it will become very evident in the course of the practice, and if this is explained at this stage, it might, instead of serving as an advantage to the yogis, it might be a danger to the practice and harmful for the practice. Only when, at a later stage, at some other occasion, when the occasion is ripe, this subject should be dealt with. After one has become fulfilled with insight knowledge, up to that time, one sees only the universal characteristic of phenomenal existence, the arising and passing away of mind-body, and their unsatisfactoriness, and their impersonality, very clearly and obviously. This is samadhi, right view. One has been seeing this right view, experiencing this right view from the beginning to the end of the Vipassana knowledge. The only difference is in the earlier on, this is only tender stage or weak stage, and later in the higher insight knowledge it becomes mature or ripened or powerful or stronger. That's the only difference. One sees the 3 characteristics of mind-body from the beginning to the end, up to the matured form of insight knowledge. So up to this stage, one is seeing only the third light of sadhana, the third form of lakkhana pativeda samadhi, right view right view by penetrating the characteristics. That is the third light of sadhana only. Until one is able to, if one has not realized, one has not reached the maturity of insight knowledge, and if one has not realized the path consciousness, one will not be sure about the cessation of mind-body from bhavata to abhavata, from process to non-process, from proceeding to non-proceeding, from continuity to discontinuity. One will not be sure about that. One will not be certain about that. Of course, not in a very coarse way, this uncertainty is not very coarse or gross, in a very subtle way, there will be this ignorance or unknowing. And hence this is known as Nibbana Samoha, delusion about Nibbana, not knowing of the cessation of mind-body. Because one has not reached the maturity of the inside knowledge and come to the cessation of the mind-body, because one has not discovered that, one is subject to this Nibbana Samoha, delusion about Nibbana. Later, with the maturity of insight, practice, reaching the stage of bhavata to abhavata, process to non-process, continuity to discontinuity of the mind-body process, with the path consciousness, then one is said to have come to the stage of the fourth light of sadhana, Nibbana Pativeda Samadhiti, the right view by penetrating Nibbana, seeing the cessation of mind-body clearly and obviously. This is the last of the light of sadhana, or the fourth light of sadhana. This is the fourth of the light of sadhana, Nibbana Pativeda Samadhiti. Right view by penetrating Nibbana. When one realizes that, from this life onward, all along one's existence, this light of sadhana will never disappear. Only it will become stronger and stronger, more and more powerful. At this point, of course, we are to discuss Nibbana, the subject of Nibbana, but time does not permit to do so, permit us to do so. So to remember briefly these two expressions, bhavata and abhavata. Bhavata, continuous flow of mind-body like a current, such as all these sense impressions, seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, bending, stretching, and all that, and so on. Everyday activities which you are doing. And then in the course of the practice also, you are noting continuously. Objects are arising continuously without break, and so is the noting mind. And this is bhavata, continuity. And objects arise in the body, and then you note them. And the objects which arise in the body are known as sankhara dhamma. They are conditioned objects, psychophysical phenomena. They arise due to cause and condition, and they are bhavata, continuity. And abhavata is the opposite of that. Stopping, cutting off this continuity, discontinuity. Discontinuation of arising and passing away, coming to a cessation, stop, cutting off. Both the noting mind and the noted object come to cessation, like the current being cut off. This is abhavata, which in essence is nirvana. So, at the maturity, when one matures in the Vipassana jnana, come to the stage of maturity, then this comes to this stage that noting mind, both the noting mind and object, cease to exist, disappear, come to a cessation, stop, cut off. This is abhavata with path consciousness. At this stage, if one sees, one experiences this abhavata, this is a right view, a kind of right view, known as Nibbana Pativeda Samadhiti. Right knowledge of right view by penetrating Nibbana. This is a light being illumined in you. So of course, knowledge, general knowledge about Nibbana is something to know, to discuss, but time does not permit us to do so. Now we are practicing this Satipatthana Bhavana, seeing the fleeting momentary nature of experience. If one comes to this stage and continues the practice in this very life, one is bound to gain liberating insight. In this way, one becomes fulfilled with the fifth limbs of striving. As coming back to this discourse on the limb of striving, 5 limbs of striving. First of all, we have this one limb or one factor, as the faith, sada. One must have sada in the practice, especially in the practice. And secondly, second limb is to be healthy, to be fulfilled with health, healthy enough to undertake the practice. Thirdly, we should be free from hypocrisy and dishonesty, to be honest, free from maya satya. And the fourth one is to practice, to exert energy in 3 stages. And the fifth one is the seeing the fleeting momentary nature of experience at the stage of Uriyabhaya Jnana. So one becomes fulfilled with the 5 limbs of striving if one comes to this stage, and if one continues in this very life, one is bound to realize this liberating insight. Then one will be transformed from pavota to abhavota. Pavota of the continuity of mind-body process, or the noting mind and the noted object. To abhavota, discontinuity, cessation of noting mind-body process, or discontinuity of the noting mind and the noted object, reaching Nibbana with path consciousness. Then first of all, we have this, going back to this light, the light of the world, Kammasakata Samadhi, this light knowing the right view of karma and karma result, that karma is one's own property. This is the light of the world. Based on that, we practice noting mind-body, discernment of mind-body. If you don't discern mind-body, you are in darkness, Dhamma Samoha. But once you discern mind and body, this Dhamma Samoha, Dhamma darkness, will disappear. And in this place, Dhamma Vavatana, definition or defining mind-body, knowledge of the defining of mind and body will arise. Now, when one comprehends the cause and effect, then if one does not see the cause and effect of mind-body, then one will be another darkness known as Vichaya Samoha, delusion about conditionality. When one sees the cause and effect, then this delusion will disappear. Instead, this light, second light of Sasana, Vichaya Vavatana, will arise. That is defining or comprehending the conditionality. Even after one has seen this mind, body and cause effect, if one is not mindful and aware of these 3 characteristics of phenomenal existence, then still one will be in darkness, Lakkhana Samoha, delusion about characteristics. Once one sees the characteristics, then this knowledge becomes illumined in one's mind. Knowledge of the 3 characteristics will become illumined in one's mind. Then the third light of Sasana will appear as Lakkhana Pativeda Samadhi, right view, by penetrating the characteristics. And in the course of the practice, progressing through the different stages of insight knowledge, then the Vipassana Jnana will become more and more powerful, and continuing to practice, one is transformed from pavata to abhavata. If one has not seen that, come to the stage, still one is in darkness. The darkness of Nibbana, Nibbana Samoha, delusion about Nibbana. When one sees is transformed from pavata to pavata to abhavata, process to non-process, continuity to discontinuity. Cessation, seeing the cessation of mind-body. One is set to be illumined. And by way of the light, the fourth light of sadhana, Nibbana Pativeda Samadhi, right view by penetrating Nibbana. So, up to the stage we are practicing, this is our goal, to practice in the practice of Satipatthana during these 70 days. Even if one has not reached that stage, we know the path, we know the method to reach that stage. So all we have to do is just to continue the practice, so as to become fulfilled with all these, especially the fourth light of sadhana, and may we all be able to become illumined to the fourth light of sadhana. Sadhu, sadhu.